everybody. Welcome to another episode of Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast that has largely become a baseball in general podcast.
Yeah.
Out of necessity. Hosted by two stand-up comedians who love the Cubs but live in New York. I'm one of them. I'm Adam Mamawala, and the other one is Kevin.
Is me. I'm Kevin. Baseball in General podcast. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to Baseball in General podcast this week, and I ran out of them. I listened to a...
Really?
Yeah, I listened to a Baseball Tonight. I listened to an Effectively Wild.
I thought you hate Baseball Tonight.
I do, but they swapped out. Apparently, there's a new producer guy now, and I think I mind him less than the...
You started listening to Mad Dog? You've gotten so desperate.
God, I have not reached that level yet. But yeah, that is like a sign of winter, like seasonal depression, probably being like, oh Jesus, I'm listening to Mad Dog now.
You know how people always ask, like, if you were on a desert island, what's like the one thing you would bring? I think the one thing I would not bring is Mad Dog.
Yeah, I would.
Like, what's the last thing you would want to bring?
The last thing I would bring, I guess, to a desert island would be Christopher Russo, a man who talks about baseball and screams a lot. And as we've said before, it's weird because it seems like all he has in his life is sports, and still he doesn't know that much about him. It's always a weird thing to me when people who are like, that's their profession, and they're just wrong about things in a very basic sense. And
like, think of how much we know about sports or about the Cubs as people who like don't make any money from that.
Oh yeah.
Like, imagine a world where all you had to do for your job was know as much as possible about sports. I feel like you should be pretty knowledgeable about it.
Yeah. I agree. It seems like not if you enjoy it.
Not
even
to have too much of a hot take, but I feel that you should be good.
We're heating it up on this off-season Wednesday, and you got to, because the winter is upon us. The games are over, and yeah. How did you feel about the end of the games?
I felt pretty great about it. I mean, as we talked about before, we were both definitely pulling for the Nats, and it was kind of perfect. I mean, like, the way that Game 7 played out was one of those, less so than the Cubs, but like, of course it happened this way.
Right.
Like, of course this Nationals team would be dominated, not have anything going offensively, and then in the late innings, trailing once again, as they have all postseason, find a way to scratch out a victory. And it was awesome. I mean, and just see, like, I really, really like this Nationals team.
Yeah,
like just the collection of guys, the fact that none of the 25 of them had won a World Series is awesome.
Yeah,
there's so many guys who, you know, Scherzer's one of those guys, very much like Kershaw, where it's like, if he had never won a World Series, I would have been like, that's an injustice.
Yeah, totally. It's a guy where you want him to at least get his one for sure, and it was cool.
Zimmerman still being there, figuring that he's, you know, maybe done after this year, and if not, you know, certainly not going to have the same kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And, you know, you figure Juan Soto, this might be his only shot, so.
Yeah, he's on his way out. You know, he just started being able to drink legally, so that's, you know, I could tell him the direction that goes. Yeah.
You know, the funniest part about that, I don't know if you heard that, but there was a brief lag in our Skype call, and so you saying the phrase being able to drink legally sounded like someone drunk saying that.
That's, yeah, I'm going to start using that in my everyday life now when I'm just super drunk or hungover, and if I'm sounding weird, I'm
like
like
a lagging Skype call?
Yeah, this is just lag. Don't worry about it. It's I do feel like I feel like the connection is occasionally getting lost within my own head in my life today and in general. So that makes sense.
When the robot overlords take over, that'll be a big thing. Like, I'm not drunk, I'm lagging.
Yeah, as long as they also take over the strike zone, I'm psyched about
please.
it.
I will take a drunk robot over a
Sam
sober
Holbrook
human umpire any day.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but I thought it was a fun game as well. The result we were rooting for sure. And, you know, it's now a week later, and anyone who cares has heard it picked apart a lot, but it certainly was surprising to see. It was surprising to me to see Greinke pulled at 80 pitches at that point. Though
Hendricks,
yeah, and he got Hendrixed. People just when you don't throw hard, people want to yank you out too quick. Even though they went to a very good reliever in Harris, who actually Major League MLB trade rumors predicted the Cubs would sign. There's no chance they will. I'd be happy with it, but he's going to.
Now, do you think all of the navel gazing about not having brought Cole in that spot is a little unfair, or do you think that they should have used him?
I mean, they brought in one of the best relievers in baseball over the last couple years, so I think that's defensible, but I would have brought in Cole, because Cole has been the best, possibly the best pitcher in the world this year.
It's not quite like not using Zach Britton in the wild card game, but it's certainly weird to not have used your best pitcher when he said he was good to go for a couple innings.
Yeah, and I mean, there was some talk about them wanting to bring him into a clean inning. It's like, well, who probably clean innings don't matter that much to is the guy who struck out over 330 people this year. You know, like I think I would have gone to Cole, but he was he really had that clock going on when his free agency was starting with his Boris Corporation hat he was wearing after the game. Right. Which the funny
fact that's even a logo that exists is crazy.
Yeah, and it's the funniest thing to me is that he had to bring that to the game. You know what I mean? He had to bring the Boris hat to the stadium before the game.
It's almost like he was wearing one of those umpire hats that just has the Major League Baseball logo.
Yeah, exactly. It's right. It's like a create-a-player free agent before you.
He also removed the Aquafina label from his water bottle, so he's also a slave to no water.
Yeah, he is. He really put on a compelling pout after that.
Here's a compelling question. I don't know what your answer is going to be. If you could choose, which former Cubs coach would you rather be in this moment? Davey Martinez or Brandon Hyde?
I guess you got to go Dave Martinez, got the better gig there.
Yeah, I thought it was a toss-up.
Brandon Hyde, it's like, man, it's got to be tough going into a job to be like, I don't know, maybe in 3 years it'll be okay,
Maybe in 3 years we won't lose 100 games.
Right.
It's like the ceiling.
Yeah, and it sucks with jobs like Brandon Hyde got, where it's just basically if you could do a very good job, and then when the team's about to be good, the front office could be like, oh, okay, well, we're good now, let's get someone else,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, Dave Martinez turned it around. I tweeted this from follow us at awaygamespod on Twitter and Instagram, but I tweeted, I kind of don't give a shit about Dave Martinez. I've never had I've never felt a connection to him. I know some people seem to really like him, and that's...
No, I don't really feel one way or the other about him.
Yeah, I've never... I have no opinion about Dave Martinez. There was some rumors... any other World Series stuff to talk about?
Not particularly. There were some very cool moments after the game, one of which involved Scherzer and his dad. I don't know. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So... Scherzer's dad, who looks very much like him, except for having the same colored eyes, was in the stands, and they showed a really cool shot after the game of Scherzer pointing into Scherzer clearly crying and pointing into the stands, and his dad pointing back at him. And it was a really cool moment where he was talking about how my dad, his dream for me wasn't just you'll be a great pitcher. It was specifically you're going to win a World Series one day. Man. And to be able to do that, there was that. And then Scherzer and Anibal Sanchez, who were, of course, both on the Tigers together when they were a very good team, shared an embrace. And the gist being we finally did it. We finally got one. And all of those moments are really cool. And that's why beyond even the Osuna stuff, so many of these Astros just won.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Zach Swan, a fellow comic of ours who's a big Astros fan.
Oh, Zach Sims?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Zach Sims. There is also a Zach Swan, but I meant Zach Sims. Zach Swan is a Buffalo fan, so I don't know if he has a baseball team. In any case, Zach Sims, who I saw last night, his sentiments were very much, I think, what yours and mine have been, which is that the wins still feel amazing, but the losses don't hurt as much.
Yeah.
Because he was I'm very sad, of course, but if they had lost this game and also lost in Game 7 to the Dodgers 2 years ago, I would be completely inconsolable.
Yeah, it would feel hopeless. Basically, it starts to feel impossible. So
yeah, and he also felt like the ALCS was so great, especially the way that it ended, that he was okay with that having been the memory of this year for him.
Yeah, that's true. And that's kind of how we felt when in the Cubs post World Series winning year, when they won that 5-game series over the Nationals with that crazy Game 5 that you were at, where it's basically they didn't win the whole thing this year, but that was a memorable playoff thing, and they still have the Altuve walk-off, so I guess that's similar.
And interestingly, in retrospect, me being there for that moment was kind of the end of the old Nationals as we know them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you killed them off.
I guess so.
You're welcome.
In terms of like, playoff futility, it ended there because they didn't make the playoffs last year.
Right.
And
yeah,
man, it's all that butterfly effect stuff, man. It's just crazy to think about, like, if Michael Taylor doesn't get hit in that inning by Hader, or, Zimmerman got jammed and, like, I think had a broken bat single. There's so many things that had to happen to even put Soto in that spot, and then Soto still has to come up with the hit. It still has to get by Grisham.
Right.
And the entire playoffs would have been different had that game gone in the Brewers' favor. I think there's a much better chance that you see the Dodgers getting back to the World Series.
Totally. No, I think that's true. And Brewers fans are probably sitting at home being like, well, we were that close to possibly having our own World Series run too.
But Cato feels that way.
Yeah, Cato is. Yeah, if Cato has not actually combusted from that game, yeah, I'm sure he does feel that way. Yeah, and it seems like the Nationals have had a good, pretty fun celebration afterwards. They were at the hockey game all shirtless on a Zamboni. It was basically everyone going Travis Wood 2016 on him with just no shirt parties.
Did you see Para asking what a puck was?
No, I didn't.
I think it was Para. He was like, "What is this?" And I believe it was Trey Turner was like, "It's like a baseball, but for hockey."
I mean, that's pretty much right. I guess that's true.
It is the thing it's the object that they use.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was good. And then I don't want to talk too much about it because it's just annoying. But they had the White House visit yesterday. Sarah Sanchez wrote a good piece about sort of this kind of thing. How in the past few years, especially, the White House visit has become sort of like a weird, gross time where you sometimes find out things about players you don't want. Kurt Suzuki put on a fucking MAGA hat.
Oh wow!
Did you see that?
So he shaved his beard and put on a hat?
He put on a MAGA hat, and Trump grabbed his boobs from behind. That sounds crazy, but I'm not kidding. That is literally exactly what happened. So Kurt Suzuki's a piece of shit, obviously. I think if you're wearing a MAGA hat, I'll say you're a pice of shit.
He just grabbed him by the boobs?
He did, because he could do it.
Yeah, they'll let you do whatever you want.
Yeah, Kurt Suzuki will. So yeah, it just sucks because it's like this now. You're like, God, now do I have to have? I guess I have someone else to have gross feelings about now, But it's also a weird reminder where, man, baseball player, like with any sport, that is a gross side of it where it's like, there's some of them where you get to know them too much and you're not going to love what you see.
Right.
Anthony Rendon turned down the White House visit, however. Along with Doolittle. But outside of stuff about players that makes you feel gross, here's the thing that makes you feel good. Anthony Rizzo, who did not wear a MAGA hat, he just made a $1 million donation, his foundation, to a children's hospital, because that's what Anthony Rizzo does.
You gotta love it.
So that's fun.
And he got a gold glove. Congrats.
And he got a gold glove. That's another thing that happened this week. Big week for Rizzo, and his option was picked up by the Cubs. His super affordable.
And apparently got an extra $2 million, which is still, $16.5 million is still a steal for Rizzo.
Oh yeah.
But an extra $2 million was kicked in because I believe he finished in the top 5 in MVP voting in like 2015 and 2016, something along those lines.
Okay, cool. So that's So that was like what kicked in the escalator.
And then escalated. $2 million, one of which he immediately donated to children.
Yeah, one of which the foundation got together and did that. So that's a pretty cool thing that happened. He had the Gold Glove. So good week for Rizzo. And
Doolittle, similar to Rizzo, is also a guy who like backs up what he talks about. You know what I mean? Like there is a long list of overwhelmingly positive and generous things that he and his wife have done since his time with the A's and continues to do now. So I always, not that it's not good enough to have good opinions about things that are important,
right,
but to also like actively back that up and walk the walk is also cool.
Oh, absolutely. Doolittle and his wife Erin Dolan have both have done a ton they've done stuff in Chicago with immigrants around Thanksgiving. I think they had a bunch of people to dinner, and then they've done stuff for military families. He's a great, a great fucking guy. Him and Rizzo are guys who make you feel really, they're fun dudes to root for sure. Yeah. All right. Any other World Series stuff before we go news and noting it on Cubs things?
I don't think so.
Cool. So let's start with Chris Bryant's. He's still having the hearing about the grievance issue about service time, so that's still going on. It like resumed today, I guess. So it's like, man, that's a. It seems like his is the one grievance case that the players' union is really getting behind, and it makes sense with all the all of how it went. I just don't really know. Basically, what happens if you're not familiar with it Brian is he filed a grievance about being held down until the first day that he could be brought up without that counting as a full season against the Cubs control. So if he wins this grievance, he's a free agent after this year. And if he doesn't, then he's a free agent after the next two, which is what we've been, that's how we've been.
And it's a weird thing because I think ideologically I agree with Chris Bryant, but because of the fact that it means he has one less year, and also if they do decide to trade him, which I still don't want, by the way. Yeah. He becomes a lot less attractive of a trade asset if he only has 1 year left versus two. But I mean, this decision is going to have a sweeping impact across baseball if it goes in his favor.
Exactly. If it goes in his favor, otherwise it's kind of business as usual. And it seems like it's something that will change down the line a little bit, which is good because it is bullshit, but I also don't really know what the real argument can be from a legal standpoint, because it just
seems weird that it was ever agreed upon in the first place.
Yes,
because they had to have known that this would be the outcome.
Yeah, and teams have done this with tons of top prospects beyond Bryant. So
Vlad, I mean, come on.
What's that?
Vlad Jr.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a full year that he was ready before they called him up.
Yeah.
And to be fair, his defense is not good, but
right, but that's also not what you're doing here. So that's going on. We'll see what happens with that. Then it was in terms of like baseball business. It was the deadline to decline and to pick up options for people. So
and people having to opt out and all that business.
Exactly, that stuff. So the main notable thing, I mean, the Cubs declined options on Phelps, which would have been a $5 million pickup in the bullpen. Tony Barnett, who I don't know, maybe still exists. The main notable was they declined the option on Kendall Graveman, which would have only been $3 million, and it seems like he's when he's been healthy, he's been a decent major league pitcher. He was in Oakland, so that was a little surprising. And it's like, basically, I saw a lot of reactions on Twitter, some being like, "Oh, cheap Cubs," that's this. It's just a signal that they're going to be like they were last offseason. And that could definitely be the case, or it could be they're saving $3 million because they have an idea what to do with it, too, which is what I hope. But that was a little notable, I guess.
Yeah, and then around baseball, obviously the big news was Strasburg opting out.
Yes.
J.D. Martinez staying.
Right, which could make Mookie more... Mookie Betts is due about $27 million this year, and Boston wants to get under the $208 million mark. So basically, JD opting in could make Mookie more available. Basically,
yeah.
Which is weird. In an off, I mean, this offseason, there's going to be where last offseason, we had Machado and Harper were the big headline free agents, and this year there's some big headliners too. You don't really expect the Cubs to be in on Garrett Cole or
Cole's going to go play for Joe Madden. This is kind of the talk.
It seems kind of perfect. Things are really lining up in Anaheim over there. In Anaheim, a couple of Cubs coaches have gone over to hang out with Madden now. Basically, Brian Butterfield went to Anaheim, and Tim Buss, who had been with the Cubs for 2 decades and seemed beloved over here, is going out west as well. But this offseason, it seems like there's going to be... I can't remember a time where there were more big names talking about being traded, possibly, because you've got Mookie Betts, Chris Bryant, obviously. Francisco Lindor is also being talked about a lot on the trade market, so that could get interesting.
How much do you think what happens with the Bryant decision is going to affect whether or not he gets traded?
I think it would be a huge difference in... I mean, it just hugely changes your planning with him going forward. So I don't know whether it would make it... I assume it would make it more likely that he gets dealt, but I don't know that for sure.
Right.
You know, I mean, because then are you talking about doing some sort of weirdo Chris Bryant for Mookie Betts, each with 1 year sort of swap? I mean, I
don't think they would do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
If it's 1 for 1,
right?
You're never going to trade a year of Betts for a year of Bryant. You trade a year of Betts for 2 years of Bryant. But.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's yeah, it'll definitely affect it. And I mean, I think everyone would be very surprised if Bryant ends up winning this grievance. It doesn't seem like he will, but
well, yeah. But that's the other thing is that, like, let's say he doesn't, and I guess his grievance is more, is it with the Cubs or with Major League Baseball?
I mean, gosh, I don't know, but I mean, fundamentally both, right? Like, right. I don't know. Yeah.
So that's what makes me wonder, like, if he loses it, will he be like, I'm pissed off and I don't want to be here?
I think there's and really since it happened, even in that year, he was pretty pissed about it, you know? So I think that is something.
Well, objectively, it's bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's 100% bullshit. It's bullshit. The problem is it's also like, well, this is in the rules. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's a thing that he has carried with him and makes him more like, might make him a little less likely to sign an extension, you know, and that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. I think for somebody like a Pete Alonso, who the Mets like sacrificed a year to have him be on their opening day roster, in my mind, that would make him. I would think that would make him more inclined to sign an extension. That is not, you know, insane,
right? Because
they did right by him, and that's what we're seeing around baseball. I mean, Eloy Jimenez got signed to an extension before he played a major league game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of.
Yeah, Acuna and Albies and a lot of these guys.
Right, which sort of takes the service time fuckery off the table a little bit when you do that. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, money's money, and if you pay the guy enough, he's going to stay with you. But I think definitely it's just it's a thing, and it's a human thing. It's also a business thing where if you know the team or the person you're negotiating with is operating in good faith, then you're more down to, you know,
it just seems to me that we're trending a lot more towards a Baez extension than a Bryant one.
I would definitely think so. And that hopefully one or the other or both is something that ends up being some of the biggest news this offseason, because I think this is an offseason to get after trying to figure out what the next foundational, you know, what the centerpieces are for the next generation of stuff is, you know. Right. So yeah, I would like to see some movement on that. Here's a fun little note I saw that we're getting more details rolling out about Marquee, the new Cubs network, and
I thought you meant Jason.
We're getting some new news about Jason Marquee, who's
still retired.
Yep, still not pitching, still fielding and hitting very well. One of those old like good rounded athlete pitchers. But it seems, you know, there was some rumors about basically not knowing whether Marquee was going to fully keep Len and JD together. And it seems like I read a piece about the announcements. A guy came over from the MLB network and is going to be one of the main guys running the Marquee network now. And it seems like Len and JD are staying for sure. So that is good. Basically, they said, like he was quoted and said,
I would have been as upset about that as I would any personnel move, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I would have been. It's a thing where it would change my enjoyment of watching these games, and it would just be completely unreasonable. It's a great booth. Len and JD are both excellent. So yeah, that's that. But
it would be a real Ricketts ass move if they were like, actually, we've convinced Marty Brennaman to come out of retirement, and joining the booth will be Joe Carter.
Oh my God, Marty Brennaman, Joe Carter is a true what a heel nightmarish booth. Joe Carter seems nice, but did he talk? I don't even remember.
Maybe they can get Hawk, even though he said he wouldn't come back to Wrigley.
Yeah, yeah, Harrelson. Yeah. Oh, Harrelson and Pat Hughes are finalists for the Ford Frick Award.
Oh yeah, I should when I say Hawk on a Cubs podcast, that does imply something else.
Sure, there's a good Hawk and a bad Hawk, basically. Yes. Good Hawk, Andre Dawson. Bad Hawk, Harrelson. Yeah.
Real quick, because we didn't do it before, once again, we are sponsored by Thrive Fantasy.
Yeah.
DFS app for prop bets. And as you may know, if you've listened to us before, they have streamlined the drafting process and eliminated the need to do unnecessary. Oh my God, this ad read is so bad. We're not editing it.
Nope.
Taking it again.
Yeah, my hungover is spread. Process. It's a glitch. There's a lag.
Oh my God. I'm not drunk. I'm just bad at reading. and they've eliminated the need to do unnecessary hours of research by using only top-tier athletes. Now, if you're an idiot like me and you said, I'm afraid to start Lamar Jackson against the Patriots, so instead I'm going to start my backup Josh Allen, and then that cost you your fantasy week, well, don't do that on Thrive Fantasy.
No.
Use promo code awaygames and get a free $10 bonus with your first deposit of $10 or more. Once again, that's promo code awaygames. And don't be like me. Don't be a dummy. Although, looking back, not a terrible idea. It just didn't work.
No, it makes sense. It's just, I think it was a real...
We knew Lamar was going to get 28 points against the Pats.
Yeah, the Pats defense has been great this year. And, yeah, Lamar... I think it was just a game where it's like, oh, man, Lamar Jackson's for real, And wouldn't it be neat to have a quarterback who was good? It's weird because it's weird. There was a lot of.
Can we trade Chris Bryant to the Bears?
Yeah, if we're gonna deal Chris Bryant, it must be to the Bears to play quarterback. He 6'5", runs surprisingly well, very smart. These are good quarterback traits that Chris Bryant has. Yeah, man. It's like you look around the league and there's all these quarterbacks where it's like, oh, yeah, that guy was good in college and now he's good in the pros with Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, etc. And it's like, oh, yeah, the Bears traded up to take a guy who started for 1 year at North Carolina. And what do you know? Not great. That's been a bummer. But go the promo code away games on Thrive Fantasy and you will win. That's already a win. $10 for $10. Boom.
Yeah, and listen, if you were on the fence about wanting to keep listening to us in the offseason, let us just assure you that we are talking about the only Chicago sports team that really has a chance of making the playoffs anytime in the next year or so.
The Cubs, yeah. Yeah, the Cubs are going to be the next.
Bears are done.
Yes.
The Bulls are trash. I don't follow hockey, but I believe the Blackhawks are also bad.
The Blackhawks are weirdly bad last year and this year after
Go Illini, I guess. Illini football is the best.
Oh man, I think Lovie Smith is out of a job or going to be. I don't follow Illini football at all, but it truly the Cubs are. I do believe the Cubs are going to be the next Chicago team playing in the playoffs for sure. So. Yeah, no offense, Chicago Fire. I don't know. Maybe they make the MLS playoffs, but yeah.
When do the White Sox get good enough to make the playoffs? I feel like in the next couple of years.
Maybe 2 years from now they could be fucking around with the wild card. Also, the Indians are just a team where they're not going to spend the money, and if Lindor's out the door relatively soon, they could fall off. The Twins took such a big jump this year. I feel like the White Sox, they sign a couple people. They could be in play for that. There's actually like a decent amount of interesting starting pitching on the free agent market. And, God, not to talk about the White Sox too much, but Greg Hahn said the White Sox were planning on spending the money that they offered to Manny Machado, which was a lot of it. So, if the White Sox go out and sign a Zach Wheeler or something like that, get sort of, sub Cole Strasburg, get a pitcher from that next tier to strengthen that up. They could be decent next year. A lot of young hitting talent. So, but the Cubs will be the next team in the.
Speaking of the White Sox, because this does actually pertain to Cubs stuff, and I don't think we talked about this. Did we mention that obviously Darvish chose to not opt out, and the Cubs picked up Q's option? Those are
good things to mention too. But no, we did not. Yeah, we're. Thumbs up on that, right?
Yeah, and our buddy Ken Schultz was commenting about it yesterday. So the Cubs picked up Q's option. It's $10.5 million for this year, which I think is the final year of his contract, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And it's like, sure, because that even in terms of like what his production has been, I think it's still a good deal. Like, I'll pay $10 million for a number 4 or 5 starter. It's just still disappointing that he's not better.
That he hasn't been better. Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to do this game where you say, if you take out September, the year was actually pretty decent for him. And it was, but September's part of the baseball year. It's sort of like, I've seen, the very good people over at Bleacher Nation. There was a piece about Jason Hayward, when deployed against right-handed pitching and not hitting leadoff, was actually superstar level. And I was like, we can't. That's an absurd, that's an absurd thing to be talking about. Where it's like, yeah, he functioned first of all, platoon guys aren't superstar, so let's take that out of the equation.
Right.
But no, he hit righties well, unless he was hitting first in the lineup. Okay.
That's one of those. I think is it Rookie of the Year where John Candy, as the announcer, has all of those things that are like, Well, on Tuesday nights, when facing a pitcher whose first letter of his last name starts with B and ends with N,
Right.
he's batting 500. So something to keep in mind for this.
He's
match.
just Hall of Fame level. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't want to be like that with Quintana too, but yeah, he's fine. He's fine. And $10.5 million for this year. For perspective on just market value, Tyler Chatwood's getting 13, I think, or 12 or 13. So it's basically you're paying less than Tyler Chatwood for a guy who's absolutely a decent major league starting pitcher at the back of your rotation. The problem is with Lester aging the way he is, with Quintana finishing the year the way he is, it's like, oh man, how many number 5s do we have in this in this rotation? And hopefully that's a thing where the Cubs could go sign someone. I don't think they're going to sign a real high end pitcher. It doesn't seem like this is the year when some of the guys they've drafted a few years ago, we might see one of them jumping up to take a rotation spot eventually.
Yeah,
there's a good chance Tyler Chatwood's going to be in this rotation, and I
saw a little chatter, and I think this was just via an article on Bleed Cubby Blue about like trading KB to the Braves in like a Max Fried sort of swap that obviously would involve other people. But yeah, I'm not a big fan.
No, let's not do that. No, thank you.
I think your point is well taken. That like if we're saying that the 4 people that we know are going to be in the Cubs rotation are Hendricks, Darvish, Lester, and Quintana, you kind of have like a couple. I know Hendricks is probably an ace, but let's say we have like a couple 2s and a couple 5s. Basically, is what it feels like.
Sure, yeah, I think that's fair enough to say that way. Yeah. So it's weird because the last couple years that was a real strength with this team, is you could say like, well, we have up to 5 guys who can throw, who you would consider in the 2 range, at their best. And
I also don't want to like continue a tired narrative, but that also presumes Darvish's health.
Right. Yeah. And, fingers crossed. But him, because I do believe he could have opted out and gotten more money than he has left on his deal. But also who knows with free agency right now.
I will say this: Homeboy's Twitter game stays healthy.
Homeboy's Twitter game does stay healthy. It's getting healthier. I mean, he's still picking up velocity on Twitter.
He's trolling Verlander. He's trolling Rizzo after winning a Gold Glove. Did you see that one?
Yeah, where he says he had to save him so many times, and he had to run 60 feet to first when Rizzo only has to run 10. But then
there was something about like Rizzo buying him like a Gucci bag or some weird thing like that. I don't even know what that was in reference to.
Yeah, who knows? But he seems like he's really he's feeling good, and he's out there being funny and cool. It's great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
No, that's all I got. I think that's pretty good for us. We'll start having some more. We're gonna have more exciting off-season stuff to talk about soon. But the World Series is over. We're now firmly in the off-season. It's a new chapter for baseball, for us, for the podcast this season.
And now you have now we do the Seinfeld thing where it's like it's almost Wednesday, so I mean that's like halfway through the week, and then for like. That's my mindset around this time of year. I was just like, well, I mean, it's November, so that means like Thanksgiving is coming up. And I mean, once Thanksgiving comes up, the rest of the year is kind of a wash. And then all of a sudden you're into 2020, and then it's like pitchers and catchers.
Yeah,
basically.
That's baseball time. My youngest brother, Pat, hollered at me and was like, we're going to London, right? For the Cubs London series.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm planning to go. Do you want to go?
I'm considering it. Yeah. Pat was talking about it. So yeah, we'll talk about that. But there's a good chance an away games from across the pond.
And I have a friend who went to the Red Sox-Yankees games this year and had a fantastic experience, and also messaged me yesterday and said, like, hey, I'm on an email list for, like, pre-sale for Cubs-Cardinals. Do you want me to, like, send you the info?
Oh, nice.
You and I can talk about it, but I may have the inside track on how to actually, like, get tickets for an amount that is not insane.
Insane. Cool. Yeah, that's fun sounding.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yep, almost Thanksgiving, almost Christmas, almost baseball. Right after baseball just ended.
It's going to be a long 4 months.
Yeah, follow us at Away Games, at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Also, if you're in Minnesota, I'm in Rochester, Minnesota at Goonies this Friday and Saturday. Are you anywhere? Anywhere Midwesty coming up, Adam?
I'm only at a college in Illinois, which is likely not open to the public. But hey, if any of you are hanging around Augustana,
yeah.
college in, I believe, Rock Island, Illinois, about 3 hours west of Chicago.
Hell yeah.
I will be there on Saturday, August 16th. So if you want to be a weird old person who just shows up at a college campus, good luck.
Go do it. Cool.
Is that how you promote shows?
Yeah, I think that's how we promote shows. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you next week.